Welcome to the Grow and Expand with S podcast, where we break through limitations, we heal from within, and we step into our most expansive, most fulfilled, and happiest lives. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode as we dive into the world of triggers. Triggers can be your biggest captive, but it's also one of the biggest tools that you can have in your toolbox to setting yourself free. Triggers totally transformed how I dealt with my personal development and what it is, I wanted to grow and expand towards. And it served as almost a shortcut towards my end goals and visions and desires. So delving into what triggers are first and foremost. So a trigger is when there's an external event happening, something external to you. That can be through a person, and it often is. But it can also be through a scenario or a situation that you're observing, or it could just be a thing, right, that doesn't have a consciousness of its own, but because what it's triggering in you, it evokes something. And so that's at the heart of it. At the heart of triggers is something external to us, triggers us internally. And this shows up in kind of one or two ways when we're speaking about using triggers as a tool in your toolbox to heal, grow, and expand. First and foremost, the trigger can show up. It shows up as an emotion, a sensation, a feeling, and a big one. It shows up big, loud, and strong. Okay, and that can be both positive, comfortable, good, nice, however you want to frame it up, feelings, emotions, sensations, or it can be negative, uncomfortable, yucky, icky, scary, get away from me, feelings, emotions, and sensations. A trigger event happens where something external to us evokes within us something big and loud, and we'll quickly go over if it's something like if it's a positive one. And everyone who follows me on the podcast knows there's not really positive or negative, but that's how we think of things. And so that's the word that I use to explain it. When I say positive, I mean things that you enjoy and like and want more of, right? It might be that you are in, let's say it's a Women's Day event, and there's 5 speakers. And the first one speaks and you like it and you learn a couple of things from it. And the second one speaks and you like her outfit and how she carries herself and her energy. But when the third one speaks, your heart is set on fire. Your body is taken over by goosebumps. Your emotional state is one of empowerment and feel good, and your love buzz inside is radiating, and you're kind of like you're activated on a cellular, emotional, physical, sensational level, right? That is your biggest trigger to show you that that person is mirroring at you something inside of you that is waiting to be birthed and unlocked and unleashed, something you are drawn to, something you are meant for, something that's already inside of you. And it'll be different for everyone. Someone might feel like that about speaker 1. Another person might feel like that about speaker 2. We're all unique, which is why triggers is so bloody useful, because it shows you yours. And so when your heart is so lit up, when your feelings, your emotions, your sensations is so prominent in a positive way, that is your number one sign to get inquisitive and to get curious and to start uncovering what is it that they're mirroring that's inside of me, activating in me, burning to get out. And once I know that, or I'm close enough to knowing that, where does the bodies of work lie for me to do to obviously release whatever is holding me back from stepping into that. So that's a trigger in a kind of expansive, positive sense. The other form of trigger is also expansive, so expansive, arguably more expansive. And it's also positive if you know how to use it in that manner. If you do not know how to use it and you just stay in it and you let it consume you, you will be circularly going through the exact same patterns over and over again until you've had enough, if at all. So let's look at the other side of the coin for triggers. Triggers happen when obviously someone or something says or does something and the inside of us starts burning up with rage, anger, resentment, fear, sadness, grief, depression, helplessness. You get the picture. When that happens, that external event is really our cue and our mirror. It is mirroring at us that hold up here, Sharné. There is a wound that you carry inside of yourself that is activating this level of response. And once you look and heal and process and release that wound, you will be free from that emotional charge, emotion, feeling, sensation, to the level that you met it and dealt with it and processed it and released it and transmuted it to love. And so this is just such an incredible body of work because it's a shortcut and a short circuit to show you where to start with the work. So for example, we all have triggers, both positive and negative. We all have them no matter what. And the point is never to get rid of triggers. That's not the point. We have those triggers on, let's say, a scale of 0 to 10. So something might activate you kind of at a level 2, whether positive or negative. It might activate you at a level 4, positive or negative. It might activate you at a 6, positive or negative. Now we're probably getting curious. We're probably getting curious because the thing about triggers and those reactive charges in the emotions, feelings, and energies, whether positive or negative, is 9.99999 out of 10 times. When you have that trigger arise in your body, it will directly impact how you think and how you act. And obviously, if it's a positive one, you'll think and act and follow in a positive manner. And if it's a negative one, you will think and act and react from a place that doesn't serve you or the other person or the scenario long-term, full stop. And so then when we're getting to about a 6, we probably want to get curious because we're starting to be a bit captive to these wounds really underneath, but these triggered responses that is making us show up in a way and act in a way and think in a way that doesn't serve us long term. And now it's a 6 out of 10. So, on average, we're kind of getting to the point where it's actually costing us. It's costing us in some way, shape or form. How that is, well, it'll only be revealed once you've actually processed the trigger properly. When we're getting to a 7, 8, 9, and 10, obviously, we're wanting to start getting curious over furious, and we want to acknowledge that it's not the person or the event, it's the wound inside of us that is unhealed, unprocessed, that is getting triggered. Now, this is a really important point to make. It doesn't mean it's not also the person. It doesn't mean that that person has done nothing wrong. Fuck no, it doesn't mean that. But you can look at every other person outside of you and analyze them to death in how right or wrong they are. It will never solve your problems because your problems come from within. And so it's acknowledging in a moment that no matter how right or wrong the trigger is and what happened, you're looking at it as an opportunity to go within and deal with something that will mean ultimately in the long term, you'll show up differently in a way that ultimately serves your greater good. Full stop. And so obviously some of those scenarios, it can take on any way, shape or form. But the other important thing to know is what triggers one person doesn't necessarily trigger another. My mum and I was driving the other day, and road rage is alive and well in our family, and I would say in my bloodline. Now, that's not a generational trauma or pattern that I particularly ever set out to break, but it is one I broke nevertheless. Because since I was a little girl, the anxiety it gave me to get into the car with my dad, it was unpalatable and I fucking hated it. And you get into the car with my brother and it's a mirror of my dad and I fucking hate it. Aggressive, look at this guy, look at that guy, stop, start, debates, words. Now, for him, that might serve him. And I think it does. It's an outlet of his emotions in a safe space where nothing happens. Like, he doesn't ram his car up the other car. He doesn't get out and stab the dude or yell at the dude or throw the finger out. He swears and carries on inside of that car in a way that I think he releases his emotions, and that needs to come out. I think it's a way for him of healing and processing. But for me, I don't want to be feeling that in the fucking first place. No, I don't. And when you're doing it, it is triggering something inside of me that is just unpalatable. And so anyways, somewhere along my journey, I got to a point where obviously I also had, I don't think I went as far as like yelling like that in the car, but my mind and my body felt the same way as what my brother was expressing. Okay, like everyone this and kind of everyone that and blah, 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 blah. And I just remember like clocking it after I'd been doing personal development work for a very long period. I clocked it. I went, I'm just going to like do my tools and strategies, and dealt with it, got to the core of it, released it, processed it. It was a walk in the park because it was probably about a 2 out of 10 for me, right? Like it wasn't really something that was influencing my life. And bam, I am as calm as a fucking cucumber in a car. To the point where my mum and I was driving in Perth the other day and she said to me, "You're so calm behind the steering wheel." And I said to her, "Yeah, I really am. Like, I am. I'm chill. And so I suppose now that I'm chill behind the steering wheel, the things that the cars outside of me do or do not do does not trigger me at all. But my mum sitting next to me is busy getting triggered. Now, I know exactly why, because I've worked through the wound, and whatever work you work through for your whole bloodline. Like, it comes from those that's older and before you, and then obviously you release it for those that are after you. And that's the whole point of this work. It's called generational healing and bloodline healing. And so I know hers, but I obviously don't say anything in the moment. And I'm sitting there thinking and realizing that for me, she's still captive. She's captive in that. She's captive, and like, she might not care, and then that's great, but I cared, and that's why I did something about it for me. The point of that story is the things that will trigger one person will not necessarily trigger another person, and it might not trigger them in the same way. One person might fight, one person might flight, one person might scream, one person might shut down, one person might punch, one person might emotionally manipulate. Like, it's different. And so tune out to anything and anyone outside of you. Never, ever, ever second guess a trigger. Because if you're triggered, you're triggered. And if you're triggered, that is your current truth, and it is where you are currently captive. You're not free there. And if you're triggered, you are making decisions, particularly in the negative triggering space. You are then, if you're triggered in that space, guaranteed, because you're captive and not free, right? And because that's controlling you to that great extent, particularly if we're getting up to the 6, 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s, 8, 9s, and 10s are very important, you are reacting in a way that is not in alignment with your inner values. I can guarantee you that. And you are acting in a way that is not in alignment with your deepest wants, needs, and desires, or your core values. I can guarantee you that as well. You're not. You're acting from a wound. And you can't, it's not the same acting from neutrality than it is from loadedness. It just isn't. Now, there's a catch-22 because you take that loadedness away, you might take away from its equal and opposite, which can be a creative outlet. I remember thinking the other day, imagine if, because I used to write, so back context, I used to write songs and poems, and I wrote them deeply, and they were phenomenally beautiful, so powerful, they just streamed out of me. And I look back and I can't believe 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 13-year-old Sharné could write that. And it was my emotional outlet, right? Since I've gone through this process and I am where I am today, I actually can't really write anymore. I sat down a couple of times now and I've tried. And in this space and chapter of my journey, I can't. Like, there's not enough in me that wants to come out. It was obviously an outlet and a form of therapy. And I remember thinking, imagine if everyone did this work, what's going to happen to our music industry? What's going to happen to our creatives? it'll take on another shape or form. Like the way I'm creative now in my business is a totally different realm, but it's different. That music kind of is all formed around disappointments and stuff, majority. And so anyways, that was just a little bit of a side thought. But the thing to really know and keep in mind is that your triggers is the biggest torch light almost into exactly where you need to do the work to be free so that you can ascend to your next level in your journey. It's like it's serving you, your body is serving it for you on a platter. On a platter. And it's what you do with that, obviously, that then counts. And equally, when your body then is serving this for you up on a platter, there will be more than one trigger at any given point in time. So my advice is to not start with the biggest, most toppest trigger. The one where it's the most intense will obviously lead to the greatest transformation, for sure. It will obviously be the greatest evolution and quantum leap, for lack of a better word, shortcut, other word, for sure. But conversely, because it's your biggest one and you haven't built the muscle, it will be intense. And I found in my experience working with kind of the 7s and 8s was a really beautiful way to get the results that I was looking for, to build trust in the process, to build the resilience within, to build the trigger wound working muscle, and to then, when I've had those muscles, carry the weight of the next one and the really heavy ones. Because I might have been able to carry the biggest one, and I did. Like I started on my big one. And so I did have the muscles, but I was sore for days. Whereas when you go lighter, you're not as sore for days. Okay. And then you also build up that aptitude and that strength. And so it's easier. And it can almost be fun. But I'm not going to lie. The middle of the journey of working through your triggers is never like no one's in it describing it as joyful, happy, and abundant. Like it's not that. But obviously the outcome is exactly that. And you're free from whatever was holding you back since forever. And that's pretty fucking expansive. And so it's worth it every time. So what I can't do today in this episode is explain to you how to work on your triggers. It's not something, it would be remiss of me. One, I wouldn't be able to get it across. Number two, I would give you tools that you might go and implement and you'd be kind of lost in the middle of an ocean, not knowing what to do from the next step. And I don't believe it will serve you, my audience, and my listener. And it's certainly not something that I intend to do. But what I will say is if you're sitting here listening, thinking, I've got a lot of anger, Sharné, and there's specific instances that makes me angry. I've got a lot of resentment, and certain scenarios or scenes playing out really brings out that resentment in me. And obviously carrying now that message on through all other emotions, sensations, and feelings. You can, obviously, my number one advice would be to then go and work with someone who knows how to work with triggers. And you can then do the work with someone who can guide you safely and support you appropriately so that you can release that and shed that. So that is my number one advice. My second piece of advice is, in my experience, it's not a psychologist. In my experience, it's not a counselor. I have a lot of good psychology friends. I have a lot of good psychology friends that left the psychology practice for the very reason I don't recommend it and now practice in the holistic space. You know, counselors, psychiatrists, I've tried them all. None of them work in this modality, in this way. If they did, you'd hear about it, you'd know about it. We wouldn't be in the state that we are in Australia from a mental health perspective. It's dire, which is why self-help is an industry and why it changed my life. I would recommend that you work with coaches or guides, whether they be spiritual coaches or guides or inner child healing coaches or guides or, you know, anyone in that self-help space or industry. But when you are putting your toe out there, you don't pick anyone that you don't have a knowing is right. If something feels off, keep moving. If you've started and something feels off, keep moving. You'll find the right person. You'll know when it's there. follow the knowing and watch the shifts unfold. It's phenomenal. If you're not able to do any of those options for whatever reason, I actually started working on triggers intuitively on my own. So I'll never forget, like, I'm the biggest advocate for inner wisdom. We have so much inner wisdom that has been oppressed, conditioned, and laid over with wounds and core beliefs that don't serve. It's not funny. And if you actually quieten down and you tune in, the answers just reveal themselves. When I first started on this journey, I burnt out. I was at rock bottom. I had spent a lifetime on anxiety medication. I was a total hot mess, total shit show, hot mess, right? Drank way too much, was in so much pain, overslept. I was a ranting, raging dinosaur, not a vibe. And anyways, I'll never forget when I started my journey, the step one was stop drinking. Like, I intuitively know, my knowing was stop drinking, right? At that time, I was sensitive around it because my dad had died from being an alcoholic, and I did not consider myself to be an alcoholic at all. And I was like, but I'm not an alcoholic. But it was like the knowing was so strong. So I stopped. Ironically, the reason my intuition and my inner wisdom told me to stop was not because it thought I was an alcoholic. That was my own human fear I put on it and my own human story that almost made me not listen. It was so that I could tune into my own body, so that I could follow the inner wisdom and guidance that's literally now led the way of my entire journey, my business, and everything I do and touch. And so I'll never, ever forget, there was this one night, I was probably about 4 months in. So 4 months sober when you've had a lifetime of numbing is a lot. It's a lot, and not a lot in a bad way. I'm saying it's a lot in terms of in abundance. In abundance, the wisdoms you get, the progress you make, the experiences you receive is a lot. And because you're all of a sudden feeling and allowing and expressing and going there, right? And so you get so much from it. It's phenomenal. And so anyways, this one night, my husband and I had a fight, and I was the angry one in the relationship. I'm sure he's angry, but he's the avoidant, so I'm pretty sure he's still oppressing. And so I would kind of like my dad, I would rage out, right? But there's healthy rage and there's unhealthy rage, and it was definitely in the unhealthy category. And I remember screaming, and I had kids, right? My kids are in the house, so that's fucked up, but also obviously now I can show compassion for it. But equally, it's not the type of life that I believe in. It's not the standard I set. It's not the standard I believe for in humanity. And so it was fucked up, even though it can be met with compassion. And that's ironically the only way to get you past it. And anyways, he doesn't respond. Avoidance shut down because what's happening in front of them is too much and they're avoiding. And the more he shuts down, the louder I got, the angrier I got, the more fiery I got. Anyways, I took a shoe. I threw it against this door. It came back and it knocked me on my head. And like, it kind of was a circuit breaker for me. It was a circuit breaker for me because I was like, lol, is this like the universe going gong? Like, we are hitting you with this in the face, Sharné. Go and journal. It's what I'd been guided to do through the whole journey. So I was like, okay, right, I'll listen. I'll go sit down. I'll journal. And as I'm sitting down and as I'm journaling through it, I've still got the piece. I've referred back to it a couple of times. Because I just write then and I don't think. I switch off here and on here. And it was something along the lines of, what if the feelings that I'm experiencing now that is so intense, so loaded and filled with pain, isn't the experiences now that is causing it, but rather it is reactivating a wound from a long time ago, way, way, way back when, that I couldn't manage. And that is triggers. I then kind of kept following that trail, right? And obviously saw some results. It was about 8 months into my journey where I hired a personal coach, so a spiritual coach, an energy healer, and a guide. Her name is Maz. When I started working with her, and she taught me what triggers is, how they show up, why they're there. It's always a childhood wound almost. Like sometimes maybe it's a wound if there was like a massive incident and you in your earlier years, like 20s, 30s, whatever, like a car accident or something. It could obviously, wounds can get created later, but almost always it's a wound that originated in childhood, right? That's getting activated because it wasn't processed, allowed, loved, accepted, and dealt with properly and guided properly. And when she was sharing this process with me, I'll never forget, I was like, oh, I remember this journal entry. I remember this journal entry. And I went home and I had this journal entry and I read it and I went, holy shit, I knew before I knew. I knew inside before I knew. And so my message in that long-winded story is we know in our own bodies, and we are also the safest in our own bodies. And it doesn't always feel like that, but the level that you can go to is the level you can go to. And when you go to that level, to the edge, you will naturally expand it out a little bit. And then as you expand it out a little bit, you'll know a bit more, you'll trust a bit more, you'll build that muscle, and you'll go to kind of the next little bit. We're the safest in that space, particularly when we've suffered really traumatic childhoods and we don't trust anyone or anything around us and their intentions and what their end game is, and that skeptical thinking. It's a wound, but it's okay. And if you haven't dealt with it, it's okay. You can do this yourself. That's my long-winded message. Here are the things you need to know. Triggers are never a reaction. Like if you're at a 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, particularly 8, 9, and 10, it's never the here and now that's getting triggered. It's a wound that hasn't been given the opportunity to heal, that sat there for years and years and years and been re-poked at and re-scabbed at. And it's that wound that's getting activated. And because it hasn't healed, it hurts as fuck because it's been there forever. It hurts even more. It's even more sensitive. And so if you have that knowing, journaling in your own way, or relaxing and going in your mind in your own way to where those memories might be, what might have happened, what you might have wanted differently, needed differently, and kind of giving that to yourself now in the best way you possibly can is a beautiful, free, anytime accessible way that you can give that to yourself in working with your triggers. So it is genuinely one of the most exciting tools in personal growth and development. And I'm so grateful that I was able to share that tool with you today. And I have zero doubt that it's going to be helping so many of you through those periods in time in your journey where you just feel like, I'm just keeping swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. It's usually because you're circling around a lesson that you haven't learned. Okay, look for the triggers, the really big ones, like obviously not the biggest one unless you've been doing it for a while, then you can go there. Look for the triggers, both passion and pain will get you there. And just delve in and journal and all the answers will come to you because all the answers are already within you. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I've had so much fun sharing this tool and this practice with you. If this has resonated and helped, which I know it will, like the podcast, like the episodes. The more of us that likes it, the higher it moves up on those rankings, the more people can see it, and it will show and be visible to the right people who need to hear it, who need these tools, who want the support, and who craves that connection that we provide here on the Grow and Expand with ACE community. I hope everyone has a beautiful, wonderful week ahead. All of my love.